Gigantamax Snorlax is making its Pokemon Go debut during its own Max Battle Day, and generally Gigantamax battles are some of the most difficult in the game, but by the end of this video you'll know the best counters and strategies for taking this Pokemon down with as few trainers as possible. So the event takes place on April 19th between 2 PM and 5 PM local time, but what exactly does it have to offer? Well, for the bonuses, Gigantamax Snorlax will be appearing at all power spots and it will cost 800 max particles to battle it. The max particle collection limit will increase to 1600, power spots will refresh more frequently, you'll get 8 times max particles from power spots, and you'll get 2 additional special trades. And these bonuses will be active for the 3 hours of the event between 2 PM and 5 PM, but there are some other bonuses that will be active from 12 AM until 5 PM local time on the day of the event. During this time you will get 2 times max particles from walking, and it'll only require a quarter of the normal distance to get these max particles from walking. And for these 2 bonuses to apply specifically, you do need to first collect all max particles available in the nearby menu. And these aren't the only bonuses that you can actually get for this event, because there is also the option of getting a $5 ticket. And this ticket will get you a max mushroom, 25,000 XP, and you'll get the following bonuses. 2 times XP from max battles, and the max particle collection limit will be further increased to 5,600. And this ticket is also available on the Pokemon Go web store for the same price, but you will also get a bonus max particle pack as well. So if you are looking to buy this ticket, then it's definitely worth getting it from the Pokemon Go web store. And you will also get a free timed research starting from April 16th at 6 AM local time that will get you an encounter with Max Machop. You'll get some candy and some max particles to help you take on GMAX Snorlax. And whilst all of this is great, you won't be able to benefit much from these bonuses unless you know how to take the Pokemon down with as few people as possible. Because unless you live in a place with a very active Pokemon Go community, it can be tough to get the numbers you need for this battle. So how can you defeat this Pokemon with less trainers? Well, there are a couple of really useful strategies that you can use, but first you do need to know about the roles, tanks, healers, and attackers, and what makes Pokemon good in these roles. So briefly, a tank is a Pokemon that has high defenses and a typing that resists most of the attacks the max battle boss can do. So overall, it can take less damage. It can also be a max guard user, which gives it more health in the form of shields, and it can taunt the max battle boss to attack it more than it attacks others in the party. This is generally really useful when working in a team, so you can take the heat off the attackers, which usually have stats more weighted in attack, so they're more frail and they may be defeated more quickly. So generally you do want to keep those attacks off the attackers and on the tanks if possible. Good tanks often have low animation fast attacks, moves like Water Gun and Bite for example, that have a 0.5 second animation time, allowing them to charge the max meter quicker than other moves. This is particularly helpful for strategies when everyone is using attackers or when soloing, because you can use a tank to build up the max meter fast, and then during the Dynamax phase you can swap into your attacker and use its max attacks and then swap back into a tank and repeat. Now healers can be pretty similar to tanks in terms of you want them to be resisting attacks from the max battle boss, but as they're going to be using max spirit to heal a 4 trainer party, you do also want them to have a high stamina stat. This is because max spirit heals an amount that is a percentage of users HP, so the higher the max spirit user's HP, the bigger the heal will be that it can do. This means Pokemon like Max Blissey in particular are very good for this role because it has very high HP. And lastly, for attackers, you want Pokemon that has a type advantage over the max battle boss, and you want as high damage as possible with strong super effective moves and a high attack stat. Their goal is to do as much damage as possible as quickly as possible. And a quick bonus tip for further preparing against max battle bosses is that they can actually do 2 types of attacks, which will be chosen from the Pokemon's charged attack move pool. One attack is a large attack that hits all Pokemon, and this one can't be dodged, and the second is a direct attack on a specific Pokemon that can be dodged. And you can do this by keeping an eye on the attack feed and the 3 lines that appear above your Pokemon. And if you encounter an attack combination that is particularly tricky to deal with, you can always back out of the lobby and re-lobby to re-roll the moveset. This is helpful if you have certain counters that can work better against certain movesets. Now back to the question of strategy. It is generally recommended for 6-star max battles, which you can do with up to 40 people, that you split your 4 trainer team into a tank focused trainer, a healing focused trainer, and 2 attack focusing trainers. And whilst this strategy can be really strong, especially if you have good communication in your team, this strategy is generally used in smaller groups. Alternatively though, for bigger groups, you could have all players use tanks to start off to fill up the max meter, and then swap into attackers or healers during the Dynamax window. And whichever strategy you find to be best in your specific situation, it does beg the question of which Pokemon are best suited for these roles against GMAX Snorlax. So Gigantamax Snorlax can be shiny from these battles, and the 100% IV you're looking for is 1843. It's a normal type, therefore it has a weakness to fighting type attacks only, and it will use 2 of the following moves during battle: Earthquake, Body Slam, Heavy Slam, Outrage, Skull Bash, or Superpower. For tanks and healers, Dynamax Blissey with Pound is going to be the best to use, even if GMAX Snorlax happens to be using Superpower when you battle it. Max Blissey is well worth worth investing in for this and for the future because it is going to stay relevant. So powering up Max Spirit and Max Guard on this Pokemon would be ideal. Now Blissey is by far the best tank, but if you don't have access to it, you could use GMAX or DMAX Gengar in some situations because despite it being not very good defensively, its typing makes it so it resists most of Snorlax moves. Do watch out for Earthquake though if you do decide to use Gengar. You could also use Max Metagross with Bullet Punch as another option, but Earthquake will also be a bit of a problem here, but you can always re-lobby if required. And an alternative to Max Blissey for a healer could be GMAX Lapras with Water Gun if you have access to it. And when it comes to attackers, the best choice is Max Machamp with Counter, which is kind of rough with GMAX Machamp most likely coming to the game next month. So whilst powering up a Max Machamp for GMAX Snorlax would be ideal, you might also want to consider saving Candy for the GMAX form when it comes out next month. Alternative to Max Machamp, you could use Max Passimian with Counter, Max Phalanx with Counter, or GMAX Kingler with Metal Claw, etc. And that leads us to the question of how many trainers is it actually going to take to beat GMAX Snorlax? Well, it is quite hard to say for sure until the battles go live, but based on previous GMAX battles, I would imagine these raids will take around 10 plus trainers to beat, but with good strategy and team composition, it might be doable with less. Worth noting as well, whilst expensive to purchase, Max Mushrooms do double your damage output, so it's a great item to use if you don't have a big group of people to do these battles with. And with Max Blissey and Max Machamp being the best Pokemon to use against GMAX Snorlax, you are generally going to need a lot of candy to power them and their max moves up. So it's well worth leaving multiple of them at different power spots often to try and gain some passive candy. But if you can't manage to get as much candy as you need to level up the Pokemon and their max moves, there is a certain way you can use the candy to make sure you get the most out of your resources, because it can be tricky to decide whether to power up the Pokemon first or to power up their max moves first. So the best order of importance is to fully evolve the Pokemon first if you can. Then power up the Pokemon to level 30, because after this the amount of resources it takes to level up becomes a lot more steep and less worth it. Once at level 30 you can then begin powering up your max moves, and after that you should then power up to level 40 or 50. Doing it this way will get the most out of your resources. But how can you tell if your Pokemon are at level 30? Well, the best way to tell is the Stardust cost for powering up. If you get to the point where the next Stardust cost requires 5,000 Stardust, that is level 29, so if you power up 2 more times it will reach level 30. Then you can focus on the max moves. Worth noting as well, you can actually recuperate a lot of Stardust used for powering up these counters through GMAX Snorlax raids themselves. So if you can do a few of these GMAX battles, I would recommend having star pieces active while you do them, because they do give 25,000 Stardust per battle, which will be 37.5k with the star piece. And if you have Poké Coins to spend, you could also double up on your rewards to get 75,000 Stardust per GMAX battle. So if you are able to get a group of people to do a load of these GMAX battles, then you could really rack up the Stardust from these. But besides Stardust, are these GMAX Snorlax battles actually worth doing? Now this generally depends on what you value in the game. In terms of relevance for max battles, GMAX Snorlax is a good tank, but Max Blissey is just better, and GMAX Snorlax isn't much of an attacker really. So it's not really that important in terms of meta relevance. However, some trainers may want it for collection purposes, or just generally because they do like the design of GMAX Snorlax, because let's be honest, it is a pretty dope design. Now with these battles being in person only, if you do decide to do them, there are some ways you can increase your chance of finding people to do them with. Firstly, going to a high population place like a city centre at the time of the battle starting could get you a group without much effort. However, you are most likely going to need to coordinate with other trainers to group up with them. For this, you could use local Discords, Facebook groups, or Niantic Campfire meetups to find other local trainers. And if you do go to a meetup that is specifically held by a Pokemon Go community ambassador, then there are actually some free items you can get from doing this. So to do this, you need to head to the Niantic Campfire app and check the map of your local area to see if there are any meetups that are specifically being held by a community ambassador. Then when you get to the meetup, you can check in via the Niantic Campfire app and you will receive a special research. These researches do differ on the type of event that you meet up for. And for a max battle day in particular, you will be rewarded with 5,000 XP for winning 2 max battles, 2,000 Stardust for powering up a Pokemon 10 times, 5 Great Balls for catching a max Pokemon, and you'll get 800 max particles for completing all of these raids. And that's enough max particles to do 1 GMAX Snorlax battle. With that said though, if you did enjoy this video, then I recommend checking out these videos on the screen now, and I'll catch you in the next one.